Welcome back. Welcome to that Creamsource thing, this extraordinary panel of individuals here. We're going to be talking about the series Hacks with Mr. Adam Bricker, ASC.
Hey guys, Hacksinistas.
And we have with us, sitting at the end of our panel here, is our first AC, Paulina Bryant. We have a camera operator, Mr. Joel Marsh. Key grip, Mr. Randy Garcia. And our gaffer, Mr. Dan McNutt. ICLS. So I told you I was going to throw that in there somewhere.
And then not to interject, but Joel also an actor in the series.
I was told that this was going to be all about my acting.
It will. Give me 10 minutes. We'll get there. We'll just clear everybody off. And okay, first thing I got to do here, Adam, is I got to make a confession. Because the show's been on the air for 5 seasons, or on the air. It's been streaming for 5 seasons. And I didn't see a single episode of it. As a matter of fact, I thought it was a show about taxi drivers. And I saw a lot of awards happening.
Why did you think it was a show about taxi drivers?
Because they call them hacks.
Oh, okay. Initially, there was some. It was when we all signed on. It was called the Untitled Gene Smart Project, and Hacks was our showrunner's preferred title. But there was a little bit of pushback. Maybe it would be perceived as being like a computer hacking show or something like that. Yeah. But
Yeah,
taxi drivers is cool.
I didn't know what the hell it was, so I thought, okay, I'm doing this panel. I got to watch an episode. And then I watched 2, and then I watched 5, and then I binged the first 4 seasons.
But you haven't seen season 5.
I haven't yet, because I didn't have the time before we got in here.
Spoiler-free panel.
But I fucking love the show. I love it so much.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
And I feel stupid about being that late on the bandwagon, because everybody else loves it as well. And I love the fact that you shot every episode. There's a continuity of not rotating cinematographers, but you have your hands in every episode of this show. And I'd like to kind of start there. And first of all, how the hell do you do that? And then we'll go from
why
there.
did we do that? I don't know. Well, I think unlike, it really starts with our showrunners, Jen, Paul, and Lucia, who created the show, who direct almost every episode of the show. There wasn't really, with that happening, there wasn't really an opportunity for another DP to alternate, because they were there for every single frame, and it wasn't like as a cinematographer you were missing out on prep or some location scout. All of the prep was happening at Video Village in between takes. So, it really made sense. That was the setup from the get-go. Season 1 was that it'd be a single cinematographer shooting all 10 episodes, and I don't know. It worked out really well, and that was how the workflow, sort of came to be,
I don't know if he would be okay with me saying so. I'm not going to name drop, but I just had a conversation with a cinematographer recently who came from television into features, or into a huge feature, and was struggling with not rotating. Like, rotating on the series gave him a chance to re-prep and to take a breath. And he wound up on the feature stepping away for a couple of days, bringing in another DP so that he could prep. And I thought that was a really interesting idea. Like, let me breathe. Let me have a minute, and you didn't have that.
Well, I had a minute to breathe while Joel was operating. I don't know. I think this in some ways was more like a big feature that we were all working on for 6 years. And I think I don't know. I don't know. I think that so much of what we were doing was based on instinct. So things were prepped and as much as they could be. But once we would get into it, you were sort of reacting on set in a way that you only could with the knowledge of what had come before and with all of those reps working together. So I think that it was for the best.
Yeah, I grew to love it. We talked about it. Like, I was season 4 or 3. I was like, I'm so glad that you're doing every episode. And because I'd done a few series before that with alternating, and I always feel like I'm being pulled apart in those times for the other DP that comes to visit set, and I'm like, give me a second, and then the shooting DP's like, where are you going? Come back here, and So I don't know, it made sense for us, I feel like, to be able to do that, and it worked well.
Totally.
And the schedule wasn't like insanely grueling in that like when we would shoot for 5 months, it's not like we're shooting every single week for 5 months. There were hiatuses where they could prep episodes, and it also gives everybody a chance to like take a breath, take stock of what they've been doing, what they could be doing better, and also just gives the crew like a chance to enjoy what they're doing and not feel like you're on this like marathon till the end. Like
Not a grueling schedule is such an camera operator perspective on the situation. I'm like,
When thinking about this panel, I'm like, yeah, I'm definitely going to talk about how bad that schedule was.
I mean, I had weeks off during Vegas. I was going on vacation. I was going swimming.
Okay, so we know where the cushy jobs are.
no, Joel would often walk on the set, like a beautiful set an actual location that our art department had like meticulously designed and maybe rebuilt, added walls, and he'd be like, wow, this is just beautiful. How'd you guys find this? Have you guys been here before? And I'd be like, yeah, what are you talking about? Been here.
I think you value my naivete, though, you know? The spontaneousness of it all.
That's true. Joel even tech scouted with us on this last season. After his swimming lessons, he'd come out and...
I see the actor. I really do. I can feel it all the way from here. So there you go. You are a born star. Adam, your path coming up, you came up as an AC through the ranks, right? How abusive are you to Paulina, your first AC?
I don't know, Paulina? No.
Well, speaking of our schedule, the camera assistants never get to go on the scouts, you know? So the first couple of seasons, we got lucky because Randy would go on the scouts and his wife, Nina, was our key first. And so she would get the intel from Randy, be like, Randy, what's happening? What's this location like?
That's so true. I would come home after doing a 14-hour scout and spend another 3 hours laying notes to my wife so she could give it off to camera. Yeah.
But that was pretty invaluable. It was like hard sometimes to know what was coming up. So that was actually quite useful.
I'm going to stick with you for a second, Pauline. There's a hell of a lot of movement in this show. And multicam, right? You're shooting the single cam concept, but you are shooting 3 cameras at least every time. So I'm just going to kind of throw it to you, and let's talk about those struggles. And this is a therapy session. It's a safe room. Let's talk about handling that.
Well, so when we first started, it was like peak COVID, and so the concept was in the beginning that only the operators would be not even in the room. We were going to do remote heads and stuff, and then after the first few days, Lucia was like, it all needs to be handheld. So then we switched to handheld, and then for the rest of the 5 seasons, almost everything, we did a lot of handheld. And it very quickly became 3 cameras all the time. The concept originally was like the third camera would kind of fill in, and it just kind of became 3 cameras all the time. We did a lot of, A camera would shoot one over the shoulder with the B camera right next to it, and then C camera would take the second shoulder. And we had a chart with distances for all the, this is pretty unconventional. We had a chart with, a medium close-up, and a close-up, and distances for each lens. And so we knew if we're shooting the medium, then we need to be this distance away, and Joel would call the lenses. And so by the last couple of seasons, it was really efficient because we knew exactly, all from Adam, the scheme, exactly what to set up. And so it became really, really fast.
Talk to me more about that. Where did you come up with this mathematical equation, and what did it mean to you?
Yeah, I think the chart originated from so much of the show are these like beautifully written dialogue scenes, often between 2 characters. And, I believe that like a close-up has like diminishing value. The more you use it, the less valuable it is. So I would try to be really mathematical about what our frame sizes were so that we had somewhere to go, somewhere to like escalate the tension, somewhere to like narratively just like bring things to another level. So we would be, very hardcore about those distances and stay true. Most things were medium, close, and then we would have the close up in our back pocket when we needed it story-wise.
There's such a value, I think, sorry to interrupt, such a value in having that consistency so that when you break it, it feels significant. And I think you can see it even in this final season, spoiler free, but we stay so consistent with the size that we shoot the dialogue scenes that then an episode like the finale where they're all over Paris and we were shooting a little bit looser feels so significant because all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm seeing a different visual language in the show. Like, why is that? It's just, it happens at a level like just kind of behind conscious, and you don't get that return if you're not as mathematical with it.
It's a very naturalistic show, and Lucia really wants it to feel very real, and she's sort of a master at tone and would really bump on anything that she felt was false or too movie feeling. So you have very limited tools in your toolbox when you're trying to stay grounded in naturalism. And I think, every scene, they're all beautifully written scenes. They all could have a close-up, like trying to just be really, use that sparingly so that when you wanted to use it, it would have an impact on the audience.
What's the relationship with you and Lucia as far as deciding coverage and frame size?
Yeah, Lucia's she's so smart, and she is a wonderful visual storyteller. She would work, honestly, like really closely with Joel and with the rest of the camera operators and work with them directly. And she's just a master at blocking, and on the camera side, like I sort of took even a little bit of a back seat to that relationship that Lucia had with Joel. And then, she would really let Randy, Dan, and I cook on the lighting and work sort of around her in unison on the cameras. But she was really spearheading the effort on the cameras.
That kind of makes it more of like the British system, right? You're the lighting cameraman and...
Okay, well, I object to that.
Okay, good, thank you. I was teeing you up for that to just throw it back at me.
No, it was a collaborative effort, but that's definitely where her focus was.
Got it. Totally makes sense. Dan, I did early in my career, when we were still carving rocks for scripts, I was doing a very gritty film with an aging actress, and the first thing that she said to me on day one is, "How are you going to light me?" So I know the struggle, right? You have a stunning aging actress. You guys developed a wraparound kind of softness for her, right? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think Adam does a good job of describing that. We like Deborah Vance. Yeah. We don't like Jean Smart, and her character is more like who we're lighting, who we're treating that for.
Also, not to object, but to object, Jean Smart is stunning. Yes. And absolutely beautiful eyes, and she's a pleasure to light. So we had that going for us.
And she also understands her lighting very well, and she's like that seasoned actor that really, is aware of that lighting, know how to find it, and knows when she's not in it, or if the person she's acting with is blocking that light, she'll adjust for that, which makes our job so much easier.
Totally. And I did see, when I was initially hired on the project and was doing research, and I wanted to have a look and a lighting style that was naturalistic, but also kind of like a callback to Jean Smart, to Deborah Vance's heyday. When you meet her in the pilot, she's considered past her prime. And so we were looking for sort of a little bit of a throwback look. And I did see a lot of references where it's sort of like what you're talking about, where an aging actress comes on screen and all of a sudden you can honestly feel the ACs swapping the filters and the lighting's changing. And I was like, this is not what we want. This is drawing attention to that. So we developed a look that was worthy of Deborah Vance, but then I think the trick was applying that same look to every single character, so you weren't noticing a change.
Whether she was in the scene or not.
Exactly.
Yeah, and both the other actors didn't feel like they weren't getting that treatment either, maybe, or whatever it may be, vice versa.
Totally.
Made everyone feel more comfortable.
It all sort of just became what the aesthetic of the show was,
I do have a funny story about that. I don't know if you remember this, Adam, but early in season 1, when the trust hadn't quite been developed yet, I was asked to set a mark for her just as an entrance mark. She wasn't on camera yet, and she was in the full sun, and I showed her mark, and she was like, "What is this?" And she was so mad, and I just panicked and ran away.
Good for you. That's exactly the right reaction. In our American Cinematographer store, yes, that's a plug. We talk a little bit about this wrap light and sort of graduating from vortexes, the Vortex 4 to the 8, and bringing, or actually downing, right? It's going from a harder back to a smaller soft in front.
Yeah, we did a lot of book lights on this show, and Randy built a lot of book lights. But yeah, I would say our approach would be for that is, operators will contest to this as well. We were in their back pocket every setup. giving them just enough to operate. But that's probably when we like butted heads the most. And we did it. We had some heated moments between Joel and us that fleshed themselves out. I think eventually, like we learned how to communicate with each other. Like, not making a scene. Joel would.
Yeah. I often knew I was in the right place if I was inside of a book light.
Yeah, he was often dressed in muslin.
Like literally, we would have Randy wrap Joel in muslin for an highlight.
Yeah, I would look forward to that. How would I wrap Joel like a nice little Christmas present in muslin?
And Joel loved that when the actors come in and make a comment and, center of attention. But yeah, we definitely like took the approach of finding that second eye with our key is what I would call it. In most scenarios, everyone else would too, I guess. But making sure you have that second eye in that is very important. And if, standing on the mark, getting it, have Randy or I go in there, setting that diffusion frame first, bringing in the lights. Oftentimes it was vortexes. That was our workhorse for almost all book lights. And whether that be a 4x4 frame or a 12x20 or a 12x12, whatever it may be. And then, like working itself around the set, right? And making that gradient happen, both what you're looking at and what's playing on the face. I don't think it's anything new that anyone else isn't doing, but it was a recipe that worked for us, and keeping our consistent look, I think, was important for this show. And I really, grew to like love the consistency that we were keeping. I didn't get bored of it, I guess.
I think and it was designed. Season 1 took place in these enormous, wonderful spaces. Deborah Vance's living room mansion set and the Palmetto Casino where she was on stage. We had this like wide open space. And the challenge, I think, was as the show progressed going into season 2, when we found ourselves like on a tour bus traveling the country and in these tiny green rooms at comedy clubs, like figuring out how we were going to make those cohesive with the look that had been established. And after some trial and error, it was really just like I've been calling it the Cove. We never referred to that. You need some way to describe it in an article or something, but like this wraparound light, Randy would execute that in essentially closets, by like staple gunning muslin, and Danny wriggle.
Yeah, and Adam oftentimes, Randy and I would come back and like, there's just not room for this, Adam. Like, we'd like complaining, and he's like, there's a way. Like, he did a really good job in like encouraging us to continue that and keep that consistency and keeping hold of that rope, and I thought that was really good to hear. And
and we joke about like the back and forth between Joel and the lighting team, but I kind of think that that's where it's like at its healthiest, is when you give them the task, and then they sort of battle it out, and everyone's fighting really hard for what they, their role and their part in it, and then you sort of reach the best version of it.
Yeah, often it's like, Joel's just, complaining over there or whatever to Adam back at DIT, and then, he's like, well, that's his job. His job is to fight for the frame, and yours is to fight for the lighting, so get back in there, and like, I think it was like, like a little pep talk, but then Joel and I had to battle it out, and I'm just like, sometimes I'd be like, talk to Adam, man, I don't know. So what he wants.
And also to speak to the consistency we were talking about before, of that Adam shot every episode and Dan's gaffing every episode and Randy's key gripping every episode. By the end of it, like, we do have that flow, and so it's like we're not coming in with a new DP that is trying to like reinvent the process or change the code, or like this past season was so smooth. I feel like we had just worked it out. We're like, this is what's going to happen, and we flowed.
Yeah, so guys, you can do it. You just got to shoot 50 episodes of television. It's fine. What are you talking about?
I think something to talk about too, now that we're talking lensing and lighting, but like something that we do on the show, which other shows do as well, but we and shoot our wides often last. And I was very confused by that in the beginning, and like, why are we doing this? And it took a couple seasons for me to be a big fan of it, and we never.
I swear by it now.
Yeah, I do too, and like, we don't ever compromise our coverage, which is the most important part of the scene. Because we lit it in the wide a different way. And I think that's an important thing for us. And the wide, if it's in the scene, it's very quickly, there, and you don't think about it that much. You're gathering your senses of what it is, and then you're in it, and if you couldn't achieve it, you get away with it.
I was trying to think of like where that originated, and I do think it was from like early cuts of the show that I saw, where we would spend, the visual language of the show is that you're in tight on the medium close and the medium, and then you also, those are paired with these sort of grand wide shots of these wonderful environments, and those take a lot of time to light, and it's a big lift. And then I would see edits of these things that we spent a half hour lighting on, and it would be on the screen for a second. And I was like, man, I don't know if this is the right allocation of our time resource. So it started, at the head of the day is when you have the most time to light, when actors are in hair and makeup and getting wardrobe done. That's when you have an hour. After that, it's like 8 minutes setup, 8 minutes setup. So.
And it gives us the time to think about that approach a little bit more too. Like we looked at the image for half an hour, however long we were shooting that scene, and then like, okay, what are we gonna do to make this happen? And oftentimes we would look at each other and like, what are we gonna do? And we figure it out, Like
Totally.
We had that time versus like just coming up with whatever while we're eating our breakfast burrito or whatever it is.
Totally. And I think like what was happening when we were shooting traditionally is that our natural limitations of the lighting on the wide shot were really impacting what we were comfortable executing in the close-up. Like, oh, well, she didn't have that piece of hard light in the wide. Like you wouldn't be able to get that image of the wide out of your head when you were lighting the close-up. So now we were just super free to light these close-ups, whatever was best for story, in like whatever way we wanted, and knowing that was going to be on screen for 90% of the scene. And then everyone would sort of see, we'd have Paulina would set up the wide shot in advance on C camera.
For like an hour or two before.
Yeah, and you'd be able to see it. There'd be a ton of lights and cameras in the shot, but everyone, not just from our departments, but art department and set design would have a sense as to what was coming, and then you would be able to execute that in 10 minutes because you'd sort of have a plan, everyone's on the same page, and you would just get it kind of close enough. Like it was way more forgiving working that way.
So as long as you can get the director, on board with that, I would suggest it.
Well, it worked perfect for this show because they're very meticulous about the scripts. There's some improv, but it's all there in the scripts. But they are sort of refining things as they go in the performance and adjusting dialogue and tweaking. And better to have them figuring that all out in a close-up than in a wide shot. We'd often just roll heads and tails on the wides because and if you hadn't figured out the scene yet, you'd be maybe doing 2 or 3 takes of a wide shot. So they were able to figure it out in the stuff that really mattered, and then we'd fall back to a wide and just get the pieces we needed.
My question that I was going to ask, well, I still am because I'm here, is did you ever paint yourself into a corner by doing the close and then go to the wide and realize, oh shit, we don't have a source or we can't get it there in the wide? But I think the really smart approach to that, which confused me when I was reading it in the story, is setting up the wide early. So you're using it as sort of an advanced viewfinder, right? Like this is what we're looking
Totally.
at.
And like I said, it was a naturalistic show. So the lighting in the close-up was always motivated by the environment. So painting ourselves into a corner, like maybe, but like you could figure it out. Like it was all there, It was all sort of, you knew what the structure of the lighting was going to be based on the space.
That's cool. I love that approach. And as long as the talent is also on board with that and they can reach their peak performance early, then that's a great approach.
Yeah, and I also think they're not wasting their performance in the wide either. They're coming in fresh and not tired of the scene or whatever it is. And like we've done this 20 times.
And we're working with the best actors in the game. Gene Smart and Hannah Einbinder and Joel Marsh. We got.
Joel, I just want to give you a chance to
talk about my acting?
Yeah, absolutely. No, to repeat back what you heard from Dan and tell us what you heard from his feelings about your conflict. I'm fucking with you.
I just think my best performance is in the wide usually, and I was pretty upset.
I think there's an extraordinary amount of love here, and we're talking about the being passionate in the heat of the moment because you believe in what you're doing, and I have deep respect for that. As long as it does come from a place of love and it does come from a place of being passionate in what's happening.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like I think that any conflict that we have on set is so momentary, and it's all based on like what we talked about of like all of us caring about our sphere of influence on the show. But we all have a deep understanding of the wider context of filmmaking, that it's like we are the sum of our parts, and so none of us is going, well, my part is like the most important part. Everyone really understands, I think, at the end of the day, that this is like a symbiotic entity. So we all, like, the conflicts were so short-lived.
Yeah, and I think all the crew feels this way too. I think that we're a family, and we've done a really good job with that. But we know when someone's having a bad day or having a hard time, and we don't poke and prod on those days. But we're able to poke and prod and like have fun with each other when we're able to. And like. It's a part of our relationship, I think, which is beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I would argue it's also that's also very important. Just that sometimes personality, having fun on set with the people, because you're spending so much time together. You want to have a good time. You know, if you come in, Dan's having a bad day. Come in. How do I cheer him up? Let's do this. Dan, quit messing around. Let's do this. You know, and you just, but you execute it. It's all for the cause, right? For the story, and get on the same page, support each other in that way.
Joel, how'd you feel about the nanny cam?
Do you want to explain the nanny cam before we get into it?
You can explain it.
I mean, you gave it to Tyler. Like so, the nanny cams, what are the witness cam, narc cam is what we call it. I think it's not anything new either, but it was new to us. It gave us a perspective of the scene, or the scene within the scene of how we're doing the show.
Basically like a security camera.
Security feed back to DIT, yeah. And we'd have that on a separate monitor for Adam to view, and I had it at my station as well. We were doing a capture system where we're capturing each image, each screen or shot, and then also our lighting plot with what our settings are on the lights and stuff like that, and then also a witness cam, narc cam of what we did. So it's like you were to go take a iPhone photo or whatever the scene, but
it's
it was
super cool,
very beneficial for both of us, and Randy especially. But Adam was able to kind of we were on Bolero talking to camera operators like Joel, move right, or whoever like move right. Why aren't you responding to me? Like he would just look at the camera and the feed and be like, oh, he can't. He's up against B camera, or he's up against a pole or a light, or whatever it may be, and that's why he can't do that. And then let's make an adjustment. Let's cut. Let's not waste our time if this is how it doesn't work. Let's move on. But he didn't have to visually go in and see that. So it had many benefits to us. I mean, my department was the one who handled it almost every setup, and yeah, I heard about it. They didn't like it, but and I heard about it from the other departments as well because they're on camera. But it's not recording.
The thing that you lose not operating as a cinematographer. I mean, when you're lighting, the best place to light is from the actor's mark, and that's where you can really have a sense of where the camera is and what they're seeing, and have that's how I've always preferred to light, is just be standing on their mark and seeing their eye line, and I can have an understanding of the relationship between things. And the moment you step off set, Lucia and Jen and Paul are all working together at Video Village, and we're at DIT, needing to be close to them to be able to hear what they're saying. And you're now just only seeing things through a monitor, and you lose that perspective. So it was just in an effort to sort of regain a little bit of understanding of what was happening on set and the relationship between things.
Yeah, and it was oftentimes it's high and wide in the corner. It would, try to get it on the opposite side of the key usually, just so we have a better perspective of it. But we'd also point at the sky when it was cloudy and be able to watch the sun, those day exteriors when you're out there at the tent, with the glass, that's allowing us to a cloud's coming in, or how long is this going to be? It's gives us that perspective as well.
And it all sort of contributes to this wonderful LED lighting technology where we would get things 80% of the way there lighting wise, and then be able to just sort of riff at DIT and to be adjusting levels, and just being able to fine tune things. We take it for granted now because we've just been living with it for several years, but just the ability to be able to change levels and change color temperature and to fluctuate things while a performance is happening, and not to impact that. You don't have to go in anymore and drop a scrim, So being able to be full circle with that, to see what's happening on set and be able to adjust the levels and make sure everything's just sort of vibing, it really helped with the improv of the lighting.
And I think we took it even a step further than we could have, in that I run a console alongside DIT right next to me with Oliver, my programmer, back at his station. But I'm making those micro adjustments on the fly while standing next to Adam. He can ask me what the key's at, and I can instantly tell him, or he can see it on the screen right there in front of us. It's a console that we run in parallel with the actual lighting console. So it's that level of speed is something we've taken for granted already. That I miss when I don't have that. And I think you do too.
And then you could see when Joel was goofing off, and when he wasn't.
Yeah, it's all those things are the tools that we've put in our back pocket to help us get better and do better and efficient in all those things. But we very easily take them for granted,
Did one of you bring it from home? Because all three of them had kids while we were shooting Hacks. So it was a family show. There were probably 20 kids born in the 5 seasons by crew member. It was a lot of young people having kids, which was cool.
Yeah, they started referring to us as the dads. That was initial. I was like, oh man, this nanette that I have watching my I'm able to watch my kids take a nap from DIT. Maybe we should have one of these on set.
That's where it came from.
And then we all just like laugh about it. And we all like laughing, like brush it off. But then I was like, I'm serious.
And then you mentioned it briefly, like taking a screenshot of that and the lighting plot and all the levels and screenshots of what all 3 or 4 cameras were capturing and having that in a master document. So if you had to return to a scene for a pickup, like you've got the whole layout right there. It's incredible. You can see everything.
Yeah, keeping that consistency and like the call back to that, like, I forget everything. So I'm like oftentimes asking the guys what we did and they're like, ugh. So we have that image. And, I was out sick a couple times on the season. I was following along on the like seeing what they were doing and like seeing what they were able to like, what are you guys doing? No, it was great. No, and it's not actually a nanny cam. It's in our network and, all through the brains of my team that made it happen. It's just, easy to do. And we're going to improve upon it, I think, to make it even better and quicker and less obtrusive to our set.
Yeah.
But
I know I haven't seen it yet, but I read about it. There's a symmetry to the start of the show, the way that the opening shot of the show was choreographed in season 1, and the way the opening shot of the final episode was choreographed to be a mirror of each other, right?
Yeah. So the first shot of the finale, matches the first shot of the pilot with two different characters, and you're sort of seeing how far one character has grown through this relationship and communicating that through the parallels between the 2 shots. And that was right there in the script. But I think what's so exciting is that there was great continuity in the filmmakers that were executing both those shots. Joel operated Steadicam on both on the same prime. And when we were designing the lighting for the finale, we were looking at the color temperatures and the hue angle of the saturated colors from the first shot, and sort of trying to match those. So it was just a great cohesion, which is wonderful.
Yeah, and it was a very emotional shot, I think, for everybody too, because of that symmetry, not just in the visual, but the emotional of it. All of us involved, I was really feeling it during the shot, and a lot of our crew is in the shot. Rosie, our first AD, is in the shot. I know Derek, one of our grips, was in the shot, and it was very emotional to come full circle and do that shot and land. Like both the shots are on the character's back for the whole time until the final moment coming around the face. And I remember the moment when I did the one in the first season, landing on Jean's face and being like, wow, that's the show. And I had like the same line, but a different line read basically in my head when I landed on Hannah, and I said, that's the show. It was like, it felt like the opening and closing was really cool.
End, right? It was like,
yeah, it was pretty close to the end of the shoot, yeah.
Yeah, and I think, another thing on our DIT cart was that when I first started doing research on the show and developed a lookbook for it, I brought that lookbook to set in the form of a slideshow and would play that on an iPad next to DIT. The thinking sort of being, you spend months in prep and you have all these great ideas, and then you start shooting and they're there subconsciously, but you lose track of them, and how nice to maybe have those be top of mind while we're lighting a scene. And that evolved. Seasons 2 and 3 and 4, we replaced the original lookbook with our favorite images that we had done on the show. So we started looking at hacks, screen grabs while we were lighting, which I think kind of gave a lot of cohesion to the whole vibe. Like we would often be approaching a location that we'd never seen before, or that had never been on the show before, and was very different. And instead of looking at shot deck for a random thing, we were drawing a connection between the work that we had done in other scenes and creating cohesion that way. And then season 5, we'd shot 40 episodes of the series. So I was like, maybe we should just do like a super cut of the whole show. And it was like 22 hours long or something like that. And I was immediately stressed that we would only be seeing seasons 1, 2, and 3 in our 12-hour days. So I had a different cut for Tuesday, a different cut for Wednesday, and like a different order so we could get through all of it. And so we're just watching the show while we were making the show, which I think it was creatively really, really wonderful, but also to what Joel's saying, I think emotionally, we were so lucky to be able to do 5 seasons of this, and so lucky that our showrunners were able to end the show creatively where they wanted to. We knew this was going to be the 5th and final season because that's where the story was ending, not because we were being canceled or anything like that. So, but we all knew it was coming to a close, and I just remember like during lighting setups, Hannah Einbinder coming over to DIT and getting caught up in an episode of Hacks, and all of us reminiscing about where we'd been over the last 6 years working on it, and that was really special.
We all know the show was canceled because Joel was renegotiating his contract. And we can talk, it's a safe room, we can talk about it.
I know my worth.
One of the things that you mentioned that is resonating in my head is the fact that we take these technologies for granted. Like they come up, our world is so much different with LEDs now. It's so much different with having a console operator on every job. And the fact that you can have a small console or an iPad or something and make these micro adjustments. I love that, and I love that we're able to do that and move quicker. I sometimes feel like we're always chasing our tail. So now that we can move quicker, we're forced to move even quicker.
Yeah, it's expected, and we have to fight for it even that much more now on a commercial or whatever. I'm always fighting for the programmer to be there, and I'm like, what do you mean I have to fight for this? Like your director and DP want that color to be changed automatically, instantly, or whatever it may be, or just the tweaking aspect. But yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
Well, the follow-up to that is you mentioned the Boleros, which I think is an extraordinary tool that is kind of changing the way that we communicate on set. And I imagine all of you are wearing, right?
There was a real conflict because 2 of our seconds, and then eventually only 1 of our seconds, and the utility didn't get them, and it was hard for them. They always felt behind because so much happens on them.
Yeah, they're fabulous, and like just being able to have different channels and different groups that you're, talking with.
I think like we can reach you even more now. Before we were on HME, 2 channels, like lighting and camera, and I would see Adam with it off his head all the time because he's talking to other people. But Randy and I have our own channel that we're able to discuss separately and get into the nitty-gritty.
The Comtech feed into the Bolero too, so that you're not wearing so many things, and you're way more involved in especially when you're prepping during the in between takes. You're often disassociating from the scene and trusting Joel and Paulina to be in the moment there. But we were way more in the moment, I think, once the Boleros got into the mix.
No, me too. It was that was the biggest change to my workflow, was having, because I would have to take off something to be able to hear the comtext. So to be able to just have that all the time was incredible. It was so useful, especially because sometimes C camera would be off shooting second unit, and then we would come back and I wouldn't have seen half the scene, and I just get thrown in. And it's to be able to actually feel the emotion of it and really be connected was super valuable.
And then can I just say, I know we were talking about lighting technology and the evolution of lighting technology, and don't take offense to this, and I know this is a tough thing to say at a lighting company, but so much of the show and the reason why it looks the way it does is because of grip, and because of and those tools. I mean, they've evolved, but I don't know, we're still doing the same thing we've always been doing with our booklights and our cuts, and the grip technology moves slow, I guess, but I don't know. That's really where it's at with the lighting, is the grip.
We can't. Yeah, obviously we can't survive without it. But you're right. We've been using the same speed rail, been using for 100 years, and the same C clamps, and well, I guess Mayfair clamps came in later. Anyway, do you find there is any evolution to this stuff, or is it the same flags and?
No, I mean, yeah, there's not much change in grip equipment. I think what changes for us is the lighting, how we shape the lights that are now. Maybe we don't have to control more of the spills that you would do for an 18K or something broader, Fresnel of some sort. Now, I mean, a lot of these lights end up doing a good amount of the work themselves, but it's what type of diffusion you bring in is slightly different. A lot of these lights are already soft as it is. They come with that, so it helps. It definitely helps out my side of my workflow, but it's still a lot of communicating with the gaffer and understanding what light they're using for what reason, and then figuring out also rigging certain lights, right? It's a lot of rigging these newer LEDs can be easier in certain situations, and it can be a little bit difficult. And so it's just planning for that, and that's how it changes for me. But as far as the grip gear is just grip gear.
I've pitched Randy a couple products though, and nothing's moved the needle, I think.
Yeah, Joel had an idea of these. They're
They're gonna steal it. I see a couple eager business owners out here.
There's a couple of people who are taking notes, I know. Here's the, we would walk into a location, right, and we'd walk into a restaurant or something, and we noticed sometimes we'll use some of the lights, the existing fixtures in these buildings. And so, we'll soften and they'll create, it's very unpleasant on the skin, or it'll be too harsh. And so figure out a way to soften these lights elegantly. And sometimes you have to do them picture friendly, so if it's in the shot. So I'll coordinate with my riggers, but Joel had this idea that's called, we would call it the diaper dome, right? And so essentially would create a little billow of diffusion that we would stick up into certain existing lights. And I would make them into different sizes. I would have my rigging team, I had many conversations and many designs with my rigging teams, and we'd make them nice and pretty, and we'd decide what type of diffusion do we use for what light, and but it's the diaper dome.
I really like it. I think you would need so many shapes, and I think we need a whole new truck. I'm like so down. I'm like,
This sounds like innovation. I haven't seen a dime of this so far.
I'm texting my patent lawyer right now. Hang on a second. What we haven't talked about, which is insane for me, is what glass you're shooting on, and
who cares?
It was in the name of the panel. I got to throw it in here somewhere.
No, on the all the grip gear is custom, and I think Randy's underselling it. I know there hasn't been major technological breakthroughs in grip stuff, but you were handcrafting. I was making you make all this weird I wanted all of the 12 by frames to have vignettes, so we're building circles around them and doing all crazy stuff.
Yeah, you're right.
And we're dealing with so many shades of gray too. I got really into I don't want all the bounces to be bleached muslin or unbleached, is too warm. So let's have different degrees of gray, and the whole set's taped with gray muslin. I'm crazy.
And we made a lot of custom rags for the show, and we you're right.
Checkerboard.
Check a lot of different checkerboards with different types of material.
Infinite combinations of checkerboard. I'm loving that. I'm how great is it to be outside, and instead of just having to do a 12 by bleached muslin, and you're oh, it's too much, and you get it off angle, or you put it double. What if it was half 12 by, bleached muslin, half gray, and in a checkerboard pattern. Randy made all these awesome custom rags, and I don't know. For our lenses were also custom.
Oh no, you already smacked me down and just.
No. Our lenses were also custom, and initially when we were building our lookbook and wanting it to be something that was vintage and a throwback to the Deborah Vance heyday, the thought was maybe we'll do some custom primes or some vintage primes. But that quickly went by the wayside when it was going to be a 3 or a 4 camera show, and we weren't able to source enough, and then thinking about Paulina and having to change the backings on every. So we wound up shooting Primo 70s and doing a custom optics program through Panavision. I essentially, honestly, just sent Panavision my lookbook and was use this as a starting point, and they built a couple versions of lenses that were based on my references, and I absolutely loved it. Because I kind of think in the past, when I've gone to lens tests, it's sort of like a wine tasting. I'm it's so subjective, and I'm yeah, maybe it is sweet. I can't tell. What is this? You know what I mean? They all sort of taste the same, and so I can't really. This was great because they built a prototype of the lens and then showed me sort of a recipe card, essentially, being okay, the bloom is on a scale from 1 to 10, and we've got it at a 6. And would show me exactly what I was doing, and I could be okay, let's try version at an 8. And you could do an A to B comparison and really build something that was unique in your own. And then in the spirit of constantly evolving our workflows, we would change the lens recipe every season and just refine it. And I would learn things in color and jot down notes and text an image to the lens tech, and he would build a new version of it. And I loved that workflow. I thought it was great, and it made Paulina's life easy, and they look beautiful.
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating that you take pretty much the creme de la creme of optical precision from Panavision and then mess it up, right? So you're starting from the perfect palette, probably one of the most perfect lenses they've ever made, and knocking it down. See, it was an interesting answer.
No, it is good. It is good. It's good.
So I actually I'll throw it to people in the room here. If anybody has a question for one of these wonderful human beings up here. The Las Vegas car show.
The Speedway.
Yeah, how are you guys shooting that? Thank you.
Joel and I almost died.
This crazy speedway.
Yeah. That was a race scene along a speedway where they rent like high-end cars and do. Yeah, sometimes it's like, it's a very ambitious show, and you would and like we would push it to the limit, and then you would get a script like that, like with a car chase or like The Cube, and you'd be like, how are we ever gonna do this? Like, what is this? But I don't know. Did you shoot the raceway?
Yeah. Me and Paulina were both there, and it was like we filmed it at the Irwindale Speedway, so close to here as the Vegas one. And I think it's like in the imagery of the show and in the imagining of the show, it's a very large speedway, like kind of a NASCAR style. You get like these big straightaways. The Irwindale Speedway is basically like a Hot Wheels version of that. That's like much smaller and like super banked. So Paulina and I spent most of the time like almost completely diagonal, like, and it was touch and go, that scene. But it looks gorgeous on camera and very controlled. It was just a crazy environment.
And then we did the interiors for all of our driving work. Initially, season 1, we shot some of them with LED walls. And then, the production schedule on this was just so aggressive. The scripts were so ambitious, and we would never have like plates in time to use them. And so we very quickly switched over to green screen, which I honestly think it like looked better. Like I loved our approach to lighting car interiors on the show. The other fun thing about working on a show for this long is that I think it's just like you have so many reps, like you improve so much, and you're constantly like refining the workflows, getting better as a filmmaker, and by the end, season 5, like, I don't know, I kind of like when I'm watching the show now, like season 1 and 2, I kind of like close my eyes when the car scenes come up. But like season 5, we were cooking.
I was so blown away by your every adaptive lighting scenario. Like we had a couple private jet scenes, lots of car scenes, and like every time that you guys lit those, it was always very impressive. Like the mix between like hi-fi and lo-fi, it's like, I don't know if you want to talk about like your little helicopter rigs and stuff like that. I just think the adaptive lighting you did is so impressive.
Which helicopter rig? The actual helicopter?
No, I mean, that's an impressive rig too, but like your, the ones for the car.
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes if you were to visit our set or even just watch a monitor in one single like non-cut scene scenario, you're like, this is way too much. There's way too much interactive light happening that's not realistic or whatever. And I would often be like, should we pull it back after I look at it? And Adam's like, no, definitely not.
Yeah, the more you throw at it, the more it tricks your brain.
Yeah, because within the cuts and all that stuff, it's like maybe 2 or 3 of those hits are happening, and
Totally.
that feels natural in those scenarios. But like if you watch just the image, you're like, well, what are we doing here?
It's so fun. I have like some behind the scenes video where it's just so funny because it's like actors in like a very serious scene sitting in a car, and it's like dead quiet on set. But you have like electricians, many of whom are here in the back, like spinning a ton of helicopter rigs over them. Randy's got a grip on a Fisher jib, like booming up and down with a 20K that's bouncing. We've got people running fans. There's like, 12 technicians operating interactive lighting. It's super fun.
Add a few little squeaks in there in post, and it's pretty good. Yeah. So it takes the whole team to make a poor man's process happen on our show, for sure. Plus some. We have to go up, and the producers are like, what do you mean you need to go up for this? It's a green screen, and like, yeah, well.
I think the hardest part of the show for me is the exteriors at CBS Studio Television City, and the establishing shots, and then the backlots at Universal Studios. It's like,
the disconnect?
It completely messed with my brain. Like, this is not real.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's it. Yes, in the front row.
So towards the end of season 4, there's a game show, and then you also have a lot of studio scenes where the executive was trying to cut the live feed. So what was the company moves like as being department heads? How fast was the communication to get crew from spot to spot?
Oh, company. I mean, there are a lot of like I've been saying, like really ambitious show, and it's a half-hour comedy, and they don't, just because the scripts are ambitious, they don't give you more days. Like you got to fit it all in. So every day was unless we were on a run with like a hero location, like we were doing 1 or 2 company moves a day. So you got to just prep them and be ready to go.
It's a lot of planning, A lot of it goes into the tech scout when you go into the tech scout and understanding when the schedules come out. And you gotta remember the schedules are constantly changing, so you're on top of it. When the new one comes out, you're reading it, you're there with your riggers, with your whole team, your best boys, or and you're okay, how are we gonna do this? We're gonna hopscotch this equipment here, and it's constant planning.
And then as a cinematographer, you're just sort of advocating for the best case visual scenario and like trying to like protect for the visual integrity of the show. When you mentioned CBS Studios, I immediately was like, oh yeah, north-facing door, man, that's gonna be, you know what I mean? Like, you're like, okay, well, if I'm gonna, let me lobby for CBS to be the second half of the day because then we're gonna have the sun just here, and you're constantly like, just trying to weigh the trade-offs there. I would find that the most valuable thing for me was to make sure that I spent time with the scripts and to not be thinking at all about the technical or about the logistics, and just to be making like honest notes about what I wanted each scene to be like. And starting around season 3, I started doing like a ranking system of the scenes on their emotional impact, like giving a scene a score, like this scene's like a 5, this scene's a 2. They're all important, but like just wanting to know that if when push came to shove on a company move, and when Dan or Randy had to cut something, we wouldn't cut things from a 5. Like that was gonna be really important to us. And just to sort of be letting the story and the characters lead the way through those logistical decisions.
In the yellow hat.
How did the nanny cam idea affect your communications with
Oh, interesting. Our first AD is incredible. And I think like, that's often like a not frequently talked about enough thing is like how much of an impact a first AD and a location department have on the cinematography. And our first AD, Jeffrey Rosenberg, who did almost every episode of the series, also directed, a couple of episodes. He always had our back and was like, just like wonderful and like making things happen for us and like listening to our concerns. And so many decisions need to be based on location restrictions or actor availability. And I think Rosie always like really heard us and like was advocating for our side of things too. So I really appreciated that.
But I think the nanny cam allowed for you to stay in your seat instead of coming to set, I guess, to answer the question.
Sure, yeah, like in terms of like, yeah, I guess so.
Or like to not have to ask us when we're in the heat of it. I can see that Dan's working, he needs another tip.
The nanny cam, these are all things that are like, we're just trying to operate on a high level. We're trying to operate on a level that these beautiful scripts deserve. So, and like I said, they don't give you more time. So it's like, what are systems we can develop to just be more efficient so that we can make this even better and contribute even more? So that's sort of where that comes from.
Okay, last question here.
Trainees, we had wonderful trainees this season. I wish we could have even had more, but we had wonderful electric side and grip side trainees that just brought a lot to the family, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love the Hollywood CPR program is incredible. I wish we had more. We interviewed in the very beginning of the show. We were asked, and there's a program, and interview a couple of the students, graduates, to see who we wanted to come and join the team. And I think like one of the things that we looked for was personality, at least for the grip department. We're like, okay, how's this person? Is he gonna have a great attitude? How's his work ethic? So I had my best boy interview, and Nate Alvarez, who's an incredible trainee, came on and was just willing and eager to learn. And I think it's nice because while in the middle of these chaotic setups, sometimes you would see the trainee working, and you're like, maybe let me take a second to just explain to what's happening and why it's happening. And I think it just helped me as a key grip, just be transparent as to why things are happening and not so much logistical equipment. It was wonderful. I wish moving forward, I hope I can do that.
Yeah, I think like on-set experience for them was so valuable. You mentioned earlier that like I came up as a camera assistant. I did that very briefly. I was a very average camera assistant, and then got some advice that if I wanted to be a DP, I just had to be a DP and just shoot. And I think like that's true for grip, that's true for electric. Like, that it's so valuable to have that experience, like actually doing it. That's the only way to do it, the only way to learn.
And now, sir, you have 7 Emmy nominees and 5 ASC nominations. That's pretty extraordinary.
Hey, we've got a really good crew.
Thank you to all of you. Thank you for your passion on this show. Thank you for creating something really cool and lasting, and for sharing here today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.